everyone. My name is Bruno Souza, and we're going to discuss here a little bit about career, right? So, hey, how are you doing, man? I have one more co-speaker? Maybe not, right? Okay. So, it's very good to be here with you, and I'd like to thank a lot the guys from JSpring for inviting me here. It's the first time that I'm on JSpring or JFall, right? So hopefully it's not the last one, right? So thanks very much. So, you know, let me ask one thing here. So who of you here consider yourself a junior developer? Is there anyone here consider yourself a junior developer? Or you have a position as a junior developer? Okay, that's good. So who here considers yourself a mid-level developer? Or has a position as a mid-level developer? Okay, that's all good. So who here consider yourself a senior developer or have a position as a senior developer? All right, that's good, right? That's the whole objective of the talk, right? So go beyond senior, right? So, and that's exactly what we're here, right, to discuss. And you know, this position as a senior developer is an awesome position, right? You know, you have lots of experience, you've done lots of great things, you know, you're dependable, you're, you know, trustworthy, you get to work on challenging things. It's an awesome position, right? And people can stay on it for a long time. And that may be less awesome, right? You know, I was talking to a guy in Germany the other day. So there's lots of people. Guys, there's chairs right here. There's 2 chairs right here. If there's an empty chair near you, can you raise your hand? I think it's just like one right here. There's 3 chairs right here. So if you can come here and sit down. Yeah, there's 2 more over there. Right, yes. Thank you so much, right? Okay, because, you know, when all the chairs are full, right, that's the moment the organization should come here and take a picture, right? Because the full room, that's great, right? So, okay, there's one more here. If anyone want to sit down, there's one more chair here, right? Come on, you know, come on, man. You just, yeah, come on, sit down here, right? You know, look, the reason why you got to sit down, right? Because once you sit down, you can't leave, right? You know, the moment you notice the talk is bad, then you don't leave anymore, right? Okay, so it's going, right? All right. So, you know, the problem is staying too long in this position, right? So I was talking to a Java developer the other day from Germany. I hope he's not here, right? But maybe he is, right? And that would be good. But I was talking to him the other day, just a few weeks ago, and he was telling me that he was a senior developer when Java 1.2 came out. That's like 20 years ago. And he's still a senior developer. Sorry? Is that bad? I don't know. It's not necessarily bad, right? You know, you can, I'm just telling you that you can stay as a senior developer for a long time, right? And so, and that might be a very good thing for you, right? You know, you might be very comfortable with what you're doing. You still work on challenging things. Your company might still recognize you, you know, to give you salary, more salaries, and you're all happy, right? So this guy was all happy. He didn't have any problem, right? So, but the talk here is about going beyond senior, right? So, I'm assuming that some of you at least, right, you're thinking about, okay, so I don't want to stay for senior for too long, right? I want to do the next step. So let's think about what are the next steps that we can have, right? So, I personally see 4 paths for you to grow beyond senior, right? And I'm gonna discuss one really brief, and then talk about the other 3, because I think you guys are here for the other 3, not for the main one. There's a main path for you to grow beyond senior, and that path is what I call the people path, right? Is for you to become a manager. All right, that's the one I'm going to talk very briefly, right? You know, it's a possibility. So the problem with that path is that, you know, it's the easiest one. Why is the easiest one? It's not because it's easy to be a manager, right? It's actually very hard. But it's the easiest one because companies want you to be a manager, right? So they'll be pushing you, right? No, you have to grow, right? No, how about you lead people and you know, and be with more responsibility, all that. So companies are going to be pushing you to do that. And so if you just accept that, you can just go, right? And then you become a manager, you can grow to become a director, and then you go on to be a vice president of the company, for example, right? So that's a normal path that you can take. And it can be awesome, right? If you like people, if you like managing if you like managing people, if you like taking care of things, that can be awesome. A lot of people tell me, that's not the path I chose, right? But a lot of people tell me that, yes, you know, but then I have to to be managing, if the guy's going to be on vacation or not, right? Someone calls in sick, and, if they are doing their work right, they're not doing the work right. Lots of spreadsheet, right? Is anyone a manager here? A couple, right? That's good. A few people here. That's good, right? So that's a great path. Do you like it? Yes? Okay, cool, right? So that is a great path if you want to do that, right? But I'm assuming that you're not here for that, right? Because if you wanted to be a manager, your company probably already pushing you, and you probably know what you want to do, right? So here's the other three paths that we have to consider, right? First of all is what I call the technical path. The technical path is it's continue to be a technical person. Right? Oh, so I just continue to be a senior. I continue to do what I'm doing. No, that's not how it works, right? So for you to grow beyond senior, you have to do things that the senior doesn't do, right? Because then you grow beyond senior. Otherwise, you just continue to be a senior developer, right? So the technical path is one that's not very common. Actually, there's just a name for it, just like 2 or 3 years ago, right? In the beginning of the pandemic, there came out a book called Staff Engineer. If you have not heard of that book, I suggest you to acquire it, because it's a very good book, right? So there's a website called staffang.org, right? So you can take a look at that site too. But that's the first time that we had a name for that path, right? That we call today is Staff Plus, right? So what is that path? That path is a path of more responsibility, more autonomy, right? But it's a path that there's no management. So you don't manage people, right? You might be a team leader, you might be an architect, you might be, a problem solver, an expert. There's all kinds of things you can do, but you don't manage people, right? In the past, tech companies had that path. When you have a company with lots of technical people, then they usually have that path, but that's not very common in most companies, right? So you can call these different things. Some companies call this, you become a staff engineer or individual contributor. Some companies call you to become a principal engineer or a distinguished engineer. When I worked at Sun Microsystems, Sun had the Sun Fellow, right? It's like so you can go all the way to vice president. We are here in the Java conference, right? So I imagine that some of you know this guy called James Gosling. Have you heard of him? Right? Yes, right. So James Gosling, the father of Java, he was a Sun Fellow, right? So what is a Sun Fellow? What's a fellow? That's a name that you can see in some companies. What's a fellow? It's a vice president. He's like way on the top of the organization. There's no one above him. There's no one telling him what to do, right? But he does not manage anyone. James Gosling, if I remember correctly, James Gosling had one person under him. That was his secretary, right? And actually, I think she managed him, not him managing her. Right? So that's what you do, right? So you can grow very, very far in a company. You have more responsibility. You have more freedom. You have more autonomy. There's no one telling you what to do. And you can grow very far. Make sense? Right? So, do your company that you work for, do you know if your company has like a staff position, a principal position, or a fellow or a distinguished engineer position? You know that? Your company has, right? Yeah, called lead engineer. Called lead engineer. Okay, so if you don't know if your company have that, it is your job to figure it out. Okay? That's the first thing to do. You have to find if your company have that. Because those positions are positions of high responsibility, high autonomy, it's very hard for you to be assigned to one of those positions, for you to be hired into one of those positions. Right? It happens, of course, right? You get James Gosling, for example, it happens, right? But, it happens that you hired in this position, but usually only if you already have those positions, right? So if you're a principal engineer, you might be hired by another company as a principal engineer, right? But if you're not, if you're a senior engineer, it's very hard for you to be hired as a principal engineer in another company. So it's better for you to grow inside your own company. So if your company doesn't have that, figure it out, or find out if it has or not. I'm gonna give some ideas in a minute, right? So the other two path, and I have a co-speaker here that's going through this path, right? So do you want to talk about it a little bit? Yes? All right, so come here, talk a little bit, right? Okay, do you want me to talk about the 4-path first and then you talk? It's okay? All right. So, thank you. So this is a good friend of mine, Elias Nogueira, right? He's here. I mean, he's Brazilian, but he's here from Utrecht, right? He lives nearby. So close that I forgot my flag on his house this morning, right? And Bass, I'm not sure if Bass is here, but Bass went to pick it up. Oh, Bass is right there, so thanks, Bass. So I think you need this thing here.
You guys can hear me, right?
No, because it's recorded.
Because of the camera.
It's because it's recorded, right? So you have to put this here.
But I can do this, like this.
Yes, this works. Yes.
It also works, right? So what I should talk about again right now?
Okay, so you're going through this path right now, right?
Yeah.
You know, and so
yes.
And so how far can you get in your company?
It's interesting thing, like because Bruno was saying this before. We need first figure out which positions are open for this kind of path, right? It can be named in different ways, like lead engineer, team lead, tech lead, principal, etc. But first you need to figure out, and my perspective, you need to figure out if your company has these openings and the company are open to have this path for you. It's the first thing to figure out, right? For me, super honest. If your company doesn't provide that, maybe you're in the not good company, but not a good company right now, let's say, a not correct company right now for you to grow in your career, right? But the company I work for right now provides that. And it's super awesome because they provide us a real path, not the best one, of course, because nothing is like perfect, but it provides, like for me, what is my goal actually, my personal goal? I want to become a technical director because I like that. Technical, not like in the management part. And my company provides that. And they are training me to be a director. I won't be a director right now because there's an actual director, and my director is training me to get her position. It's a little bit crazy, right? But she's teaching me how to become a director, what she does, how she's replying, the political things that happens in the technical side. And this is awesome because I can still work technically, and I'm still being taught like by someone that I really like, and they have this sense, of course. I'm training you. You're not getting my position right now, but it's something super fair, right? I'm helping you to grow in your technical career. And this is, for me, it's one of the most important things you guys should figure out. If your company provides this path, this way, for you to grow. I tried this when I just joined the company, and I said, okay, I can grow here. So it's perfect. I will make my path. I will make my path. But if I went to the company, if I started the company, I can say, okay, there's no much room to grow. Probably I would look for another job, for a company that could provide that. Or maybe I would influence others, influence my directors, okay, why we don't have a path like for the engineers to go behind the scenes, beyond the seniors. So it's super important.
Cool. So you're going to stay around because people are going to ask questions for you right in a minute, right?
I'll be in there.
You'll be there in the end? Okay, cool. Thanks. You know. So I asked Elias to come here and talk about this for you guys. So just for you to see that, yes, that path exists. There's a lot of companies that provide that. And as he said, if your company doesn't provide, there are ways for you to start talking to them and see that, right? Because in reality is, if people want you to go that path and your company doesn't provide, they're going to start looking for other places, right? So, you know, so if you're, for the few people that raise their hand that you're managers, right, think about that. You know, if there's not a path in your company for people to continue to grow, not everyone wants that path. You have to understand that. Not everyone wants that, right? You know, staying a senior is an option. You know, so we're talking about the 4 paths to grow beyond senior. I'm going to get back to this particular path that Elias was talking about, but you know, but I just want to talk about the other 2 paths because I think they're similar in lots of ways. So the other 2 paths are to go independent. You know, it's totally possible for you to go independent. That is, you know, you become a consultant, you become a freelancer, you become an instructor, right? So you go totally independent and you work on your own. It's like, you know, your one-person company. Right? So you become a one-person company, and there's a lot of room in the market, right? There's, you know, I'm sure that your company hire consultants, right? You know, so unless your company is very small, but even the small companies sometimes hire consultants, right? So that helps you for example, go deeper on any technology, right? So let's just get an example. If you are a totally specialist on high-performance Java VMs, right? So you tune the VM, you work on the performance. How much work do you have in any single company? Right? There might be a few companies that will require someone like this full-time, right? But most companies will not. So you can work for multiple companies as a consultant, for example, and solve performance problems on Java VMs in lots of different places, right? So you can have more experience, you can have access to more confusing, more complex things. Make sense, right? Confusing would be good too, right? Yes, confusing is maybe the best word, right? And the fourth path is the entrepreneurial path, right? So you launch your own company, right? So it's not you yourself, right? But you have a few people, you start a startup, you join a startup, that's another option, right? You join a startup, and you might go over that path. Even if you join a startup as a senior, right? But it's a small startup that you have shares of it. That's also the entrepreneurship path, right? They are not the same thing as you just keeping working as a senior in a big company. So those are the four paths that we have to consider. There might be others, but those are the ones that are like obvious, right? That we can go after. And there's something in common with all of that. And there's a few. So all of those paths requires more responsibility, right? So you have to be more responsible. So, for example, the manager path, you're responsible for lots of people now, right? The technical path, you usually are responsible for more projects. When you go to a staff position or a principal position, you stop being responsible only for the code you're writing, and you start being responsible for, your project or multiple projects, and you're responsible to track what's going on in multiple projects, where people need you, right? But the most important thing is not responsibility. The most important thing is autonomy. All those paths requires a high level of autonomy. And autonomy, guys, is a very weird thing. Because autonomy, if you don't have it, you can't ask for it. Because if you have to ask for it, then you don't have it and you don't deserve to have it. Right? Because autonomy is the capacity of deciding what you're going to do. If you have to ask someone, can I do that? Then you don't have autonomy and you should not have it. Right? So autonomy is something that you grab it. Right? You look for things around you and you just decide, I'm going to do this because that's important for the company. Right? Autonomy is not to do whatever you want. Autonomy is to do something that's important for the company, important for the project, important for people around you. So if you want to grow beyond senior, that's the first thing you have to work on. How do I start doing things that are important for the company, even though my manager never asked it, even though my manager wants me to do something different, right? And sometimes that requires conflict, right? With your manager, with other people. It requires you to walk into a room that's going on a meeting for another project and you say, hey guys, I want to participate on this. And the guys in the other project might not like that, right? And might require to do this. So one very important skill that we need to have is negotiation. And now you're going to start noticing that I'm going to talk about lots of things here, but you're going to say, but Bruno, those are not technical skills, right? And that's not writing code. And here's the bad part. All the beyond senior paths are less code. It's not less technical. It's not no code, but it's definitely less code, right? Because they require, for you to have more influence in a project, for you to have more autonomy, more responsibility, there's other things more important than the code in the company, right? So when you define an architecture, for example, what happens? Everyone in the company now has to follow that. That's way more impact than, doesn't matter how much code you want to write. Make sense? If you go and you decide to use an open source tool, that changes the whole company, how the company is going to work. And that's more important than you writing lots of code, right? So negotiation is an important path. It's an important process because negotiation, it's not, me trying to get money out of Rodrigo here, right? That's not negotiation, right? Negotiation is me and Rodrigo working together, right, to solve a problem in a way that I win, he wins. Not in a way that I get what I want and he gets nothing. Not in a way that he gets what I want and I get nothing. Neither I get everything I want and he gets everything he wants, because that's probably impossible, right? But negotiation is a problem-solving strategy that we have to work together to get to some place that I want to be there and he wants to be there too. Make sense? So we have to practice that. The other skill that's important, right, is communication, right? And that's why I asked Tom to be here. No, you're already coming here. No, okay, yes, go ahead, come here, right? So let me just talk about communication really quick. I'm sure you heard many people talking how important is communication, right? Being a speaker and, participating on user groups and meetups, all that. I mean, I'm sure you heard of all that. But there's one thing you might not have heard, right? How many of you here have heard of the Conway's Law? All right, Conway's Law? Okay, some of you have. Conway's Law, it's a very important law in software development. It has everything to do with software, right? It's a very important law in software development. It basically says that any design of system, any system design will follow or match the design of the structure of the company. Basically, Conway's Law is very famous right now because of microservice, right? That basically what it means is if you are in a team that works everyone in the same room, you're going to build a monolith, right? And if you are in a team that everyone is distributed in smaller teams, you're going to build a microservice, right? Because the design of the system matches the structure of the organization. But that's how people talk about Conway's Law. But if you read Conway's Law, that's not what he says. He says that the design of a system matches the communication between the teams. So if you want to be a good developer, you have to communicate well. Because Conway's Law guarantees that if you communicate badly, you're going to have a bad system. Right? So what do you think, Tom? So Tom is Tom is the leader of the Belgian Java user group, right? And so you've been working on communities for a long time, right?
Yeah.
You can hold this.
Oh, thank you. It's so elegant. So hello, everyone. I've been trying to host the Antwerp Java user group, which completely failed, and partially because, well, I started it in March 2020, which is, well, king of the bad timing awards.
That's a good design, right?
But also because I didn't have a network with people that I can easily communicate with. I didn't spend enough effort into really figuring out what do people need, because communication is not just sending, it's also, mostly I'd say listening, analyzing what people need and really want. And I think if you want to build a good network and a good structure within, and I don't necessarily network as like globally or within your country, but just a good network within your company, it's really important that you really listen to people and really know like, oh, I know what Bruno wants, and then you can start with that. Even small things like, oh, I know Bruno is from Brazil. Maybe I can like start about that, so I don't have to start about his shoes. So I can just directly look at his face, and we can actually have a conversation that way. So yeah, I think that's the most important things.
Cool. So do you have any tips for people if they want to participate in a user group or they want to share their knowledge, for example?
Yeah, so I don't know if anyone saw my talk here last year, because I was one of the speakers last year. And I ended my talk by saying I would actually really be excited if instead of me speaking, I'm speaking again this year, ironically, but instead of me getting a slot, I would love it if someone else gets a slot. Because I think knowledge sharing...
I got a slot because of you then. Thank you.
Well, if you take it that way, sure. No, but I think sharing knowledge is such a powerful thing because it's not just for you, because you get to be popular and get to stand in front of people and feel important at some points, but it's also like it's kind of the coolest communication that you can have. You can literally help people around you just by sharing your story. So even if you don't have like a very technical story, my talk last year was about learning how to learn. It's not technical, but it's by far the most popular talk that I give at conferences. So share whatever you have, and I'm pretty sure there will be someone that can learn a lot from your story.
Cool.
I think that's
Thank
it.
you. Thanks a lot, Tom. So, you know, communication, guys, change the world, right? You know, I was coming here. One thing Utrecht is the first city that I'm doing in a tour that it's a 35-day tour here in Europe where I'm going to go to 9 countries and do 13 events, right? So, and one of these events is going to be in Be a Jug. Why? Because Tom heard me talking about it in a podcast, right? So I was talking in a podcast, I was interviewing, and I mentioned that I was going to come here, and Tom, instead of, like, lots and lots of people watch that podcast, right? But Tom, instead of just watching it, listen to it, he messaged me and said, hey, Bruno, can you come here to Belgium? And I could not, right? Because it was really tight. But we found a way, you know, Tom was very accommodating, you know, with how we could do that. I was very flexible, so we worked it together, right? And communication, you know, actually Tom is an interesting case of communication because right before I was way there and back on Grace's talk before mine here, and I was looking Twitter and I saw Tom talking about, you know, oh, there's 4 great talks, right? And I don't know which one to choose, right? And I told him, I said, you can go watch the other talks, or if you come to mine, I'm going to make you a speaker. Right? So now he's here, right? So thanks, Tom. Thanks a lot. So you know, I'm just talking about this because, you know, it's a funny story here, but really, if you want to grow beyond senior, you have to communicate well, right? You know, you have, because that's the way for you to get more responsibility, for you to get more autonomy, but most important of all is the way for you to get more influence. So the path of beyond senior is a path of influence, right? You can help, you can change more things in your company. You can have larger impact. So the things that you don't like about your company right now, I know there's a lot, right? So you don't like that the code is not high quality. You don't like that the process is crazy. You don't like that people are not listening to the customer. You don't like that you're not using the latest version of Java. You don't like that you're not using cloud. You don't like that this awesome tool that you know is going to solve all the problems. You guys are not using that. You can complain about it, right? Or you can grow beyond senior and create, you know, being a good negotiator, be a good speaker, right? You can influence your company to do the right things, right? So that's what Elias is doing. I was having a conversation with Elias this week, and he was talking about, well, there are things that we're doing in our company, and that I can influence my departments. 27 that you said, or 17 groups? Sorry? 17. So 17 development groups. 17, not 17 developers, but 17 teams, right? Elias can influence. But that's not the whole company. There are other teams that he doesn't have the influence yet, right? Because there's other directors, other people there. So not everyone in the company does what Elias thinks is the right thing to do. So if he grows in the company, and if he becomes a director in the company, he can influence more people, more developers, right? My co-speaker that's traveling, that's going to travel to several cities with me, Otavio Santana, he's been a speaker here before. Otavio, he's the right arm of the vice president of one of the largest banks in the world. Otavio, his decisions and Otavio is an open source developer. He's working lots of open source things. He was one of the big guys in Jakarta EE. You know, he's doing the JNoSQL. He works on Cassandra and all kinds of you know, open source databases and these kind of things, right? Otavio is very technical. And Otavio codes all the time, right? But his decisions on this big bank affect directly 8,000 developers. And indirectly, other 10,000 developers. So what Otavio does inside this bank, 18,000 developers have to follow. That's influence, right? That's impact. So you can, so that's you know, I hope that that's what you want to do, right? So, you know, you can grow and achieve those kind of levels, right? You know, if you going back to our example of James Gosling, right? James Gosling is working on Amazon right now, you know, and I'm sure there's no one telling James Gosling what to do, right? But he gets involved in anything that he thinks is important, right? So I was talking to a friend of mine in Amazon, and they said that one of the changes that they did in the JVM, right, in Coreto, you know, improved the performance of the Amazon database and reduced in 12% the need of machines. Can you imagine Amazon with 12% less need of machine, right? That's a huge impact, guys, and that's something that you guys can do. You know, it requires someone that's willing to say, I take responsibility. I'm going to do what needs to be done. So you can go after, and you can get the autonomy because you know the problems, right? You know, there's lots of things you want to change, but your manager doesn't understand, right? You know, other people in the company doesn't understand, but you know the right path. And for that, you have to go fight it, right? So what I want to think about, so if you want to go any of those 4 paths, I'm not very good at the management path. I'll let you guys know that, right? But if you want to go in one of those 4 paths, I want you to think for a second and say, what prevents me right now from going back to my company and get a position in one of those 4 paths, right? Either on the management path or the technical path or becoming a, you know, independent or going to entrepreneur. What prevents you, right? And, you know, I still have like 15 minutes, I think. Yeah, a little less. I want to spend the next 15 minutes helping you solve that problem. So who wants to go first? No one. No one has a problem. That's good. Why you're here, right? So that's you got a question right there. You think you cannot do it. You don't know what to do. But you don't know what to do what? Take responsibility. Okay. So, how many years of career do you have? 30 years of career. Okay, thank you very much. Right? So, even someone with 30 years of career, right, still have doubts about his capabilities, right? And so, and that is something that we have to recognize that those 30 years of experience makes you a superstar. Seriously. It gives you a superpower that you have no idea how strong you are. Why? Because, guys, let's think about this. Every 5 years, we double the number of developers in the world. Right? You know, so every 5 years, half of the developers don't know what you know. Now, do this again, and again, and again, and again. And imagine someone with 30 years. How many developers in the world have his experience? It's a tiny fraction already, right? So your experience, it's needed because there's a huge amount of developers that don't know what you know, don't know how to do what you know how to do. And that is what we talk about taking responsibility. It's just recognizing your abilities, your knowledge, the things that you know inside your company, and say, yes, it's not easy. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. It's hard, but I'm just going to do it because my company needs that, because my teammates needs that. Make sense? So taking responsibility is not a skill that you learn. It's looking around you and say, hey, I got it. Someone has to do that, right? And I'm going to be the one who's going to say, I'm going to take the responsibility to step forward to do it. Because if you don't do it, someone else will have to. And that might be someone that has less experience that you have. Make sense? So, but one thing that he asked, I think that's interesting, is that he said, I don't know how to do it. So, one thing that lots of people ask me, he said, so how do we plan for that? You know, how do we plan for a next step? How do we plan for a thing like this? So, I was going to put this in the end, but I think it helps his question. I'm going to put this right now. So, a few years ago, I wrote a little book, right, called The Best Developer Year, to help you plan your career. Right, to help you plan, what do I know right now? So that's the question of the book, right? So what are your strong parts right now? What's missing and what you should do, right? So it's not a book, it's a lot of questions, right? I ask you all the questions, in the book I ask you all the questions that I ask my customers, right? So people are trying to take pictures, don't take pictures of that right now. So, because, you know, if you come to this page right here, okay, now you can take a picture, right? If you come to this page right here, put your name and email, there's two things gonna happen. One, you're going to get a free book from me. Totally free, right? You're going to get a free book from me. You're going to get an email with the book, right? The second thing that's going to happen is you're going to get an email from me with the book. That means if anything that we don't know, we only have 10 minutes. If there's any question that I cannot answer here, just reply to the email and say, hey, Bruno, I was in your talk and I need help with something and I'm going to help you, right? So that's, you know, I want you to grow your career. Many, many years ago, I had a big discussion with my dad, right? You know, he did not want me to work. He wanted me to focus on university, and I wanted to work. I did not want to focus on university, right? So we had a big, big fight. And in the middle of the fight, right, I was like a teenager, really stupid, right? I yelled at my dad, right? You know, in the middle of the fight, the phone rang. And the guy on the other side said, Bruno, Newton from Sun Microsystems is needing a trainee, and he said, if you want, the job is yours. And at that moment, my dad pissed it off with me, thinking that I was stupid and that I was doing the wrong thing. He sat down on his computer to help me write my first resume. I joined Sun, and 1 week after I joined Sun, the first public demonstration of Java came out. So if my father, because he had all the power, if my father had said, no, you're not going to go work, you're going to go to, you know, you're going to finish your studies and all that, don't go work. If you do, I've stopped supporting you. I would have not done it. And the Java man would never exist, right? So because of that, I made a point in my career to help you grow your career. So if any question you have, just reply to that email and I'm going to help you, right? Because I want you to grow to whatever path you want to take, right? Okay, who else? Who else has a problem that you don't know how to solve? Here.
How to negotiate. You said communication, how to negotiate.
Yes.
That is, in my opinion, my weak point.
Okay. To negotiate. Now, do you have any specific example that's something that you want to negotiate or that I can talk about, or general?
No. It's just I see what's wrong in my company. I know I can tell what path to take. Well, how do I convince my manager?
All right.
How do I convince that's the thing.
Okay, so here's the problem, right? It's very, very good question. So she's asking, how do I convince, how to negotiate, how do I convince my manager, right? And here's the problem, guys. The moment you try to convince someone, you're already lost. You know, because the moment you're trying to convince someone, you create a barrier that the other person, who wants to be convinced, right? You know, if you convince me or something, I lose, right? But that's not what we want. We want to inspire people to take action. We cannot transform anyone. The only thing we can do is help someone to transform themselves. So you have to inspire people. So I'm going to go back, I'm going to go in specific to your question, but I want to go back to what Ton said, right? that the most important part of communication is not to speak, is to listen. The more you listen, the better you are able to help the other person see what the problem is, right? See how to do things. So here are my four. So first of all, to convince people, you're not convincing, right? So that's not even negotiation. I'm gonna give you the 4 paths for you to convince someone, not convince someone, to inspire someone to take action, right? The 4 steps, right? And by the way, thanks for the question, because I detailed that in the book, right? So you can just go in the book also to see that, right? So the 4 steps for you to help someone to make a decision or to take an action, right? First of all, you have to help the other person to build a better world. They have to see a better future. Your manager is not, your manager wants the best for the company. He's not doing the things that he's doing because he's against the company. He just sees the future in a different way, right? So you have to help him see a better future for the company, for the team, for himself. It's much more power if he sees a better future for himself than for the company, right? The second thing you do is help people maximize the current problems. Why? Because your manager, they might see, yes, okay, we could be in this awesome technology. It would be amazing. That's great. But you know what? It's a lot of effort to do that, right? So how about we just stay where we are? So you have to maximize the current problem. You have to see what happens if I don't do it. What are the problems if I don't, if we stay where we are? How much it costs? How much, how much more time we take to do things, right? So you have to help them, and it's not you telling them, it's that you asking them, so what do you think is going to happen if we don't do anything, right? The third step, so the moment you say that, your manager is going to say, yeah, okay, I got it. We have to get to this amazing place. Staying where we are is not possible. But you know what? To do that so hard. We're never going to do it, right? There's no way to do it. I don't know how to do it. That's what he said right there, right? I don't know how to do that. So the third step that you should do is that build a bridge. Build a bridge from where you are to where you want to get. So what are the steps that need to be taken, right? How can I move that in that direction? What are the steps I need to take, right? And the moment you do that, you say, yes, we can see a plan. That's a plan, right? You can see a plan that can go from here to there. That's awesome. But you know what? We don't need this right now. Let's do the next week. Let's do next year, right? So you have to help your manager take the first step. Whatever tiny little step it is. It's not like, manager, let's change everything. No. Can I spend 2 days doing a little prototype? Right? A tiny step that your manager is not going to say no. He'll say, yeah, okay, so let's do this. You do a little prototype and we work on this, right? Get him moving very, in a small step. So you inspire people to move instead of you trying to convince them to move. Make sense? Yeah. Right? And so that's not necessarily negotiation. That's you're trying to inspire people. But negotiation, you listen, right? That's the same skill, right? You listen. The most important skill for negotiation is to listen. Negotiation is not a confrontation. It's not me trying to convince you. It's me and you working together to solve a problem. And the problem that I see with developers a lot is that developers, when they try to solve a problem, they try to think about what they want, right? And that's not the way for you to solve a problem. For you to solve a problem, you have to help the other person with what they want. You know what you want, but what does your manager want? What is success to your manager? That's a good question, guys. If you never ask that question, I was talking to a guy the other day, he said, man, I have such a great conversation with my manager. I never asked that to him. Ask him, boss, I want to be amazing. This year, I want to be the best employee of the company. No. Not the best. The second best employee of the company, right after you. Right? And they say, but for me to be the best employee of the company, I need to help you be successful. So what is success to you? Right? So what needs to happen in this company, this team, in this project that you're going to see this success? And then figure out how you can help your manager. Because we are not supposed to like your manager or be friends with your manager, any of that. You can hate your manager if you want to. But no matter what you think about your manager, your job is to help your manager be successful. So if you don't know what's success for him, how are you going to help him? Right? So that's what we have to think about. And so when you negotiate, negotiation is not me trying to convince you. Negotiation is me and you working together to solve a problem. Right? Negotiation is, we have resources, we have difficulty, we have all kinds of problems, but we have to work together to solve that. Make sense? Yep. Does that help? Yep. All right, so do I have 1 more minute? I have 18 seconds, so that's not enough for me to answer any more questions, but I'm going to be here outside if you want to ask anything else, or if you just send me an email and we can continue. I'm going to be traveling all over Europe, so if you can follow me. We're going to have lots of online discussions, and I have lots of good people that are going to come with me that can discuss those things. So send me your questions. And I have been allowed by the organization to say that right now, spring is over and we start officially the summer. So welcome to the summer, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.